Hello, everyone. I'm Alan Jones, Director of the Digital Library and Technical Services at the New School in New York City. I'm hoping you've heard of Project Reshare, the folio-based resource sharing broker that has over 120 institutions in the United States, Europe, and soon, Australia. Up to this release, Reshare has been focused on returnables, or the request and supply of physical materials. Today, I'll be talking about non-returnables, or the supply of digital materials. This can come in many forms: scans of articles and book chapter requests, the supply of licensed materials such as articles from databases, ebooks, and many other types of digital lending. In late February of 2024, the Reshare community embarked on its first software enhancement vote where the community, made up of implementers who contribute to the development of the Reshare platform based on their hosting fees and membership dues, collectively decided on the next directions for Project Reshare to grow. In this sense, Reshare is a platform cooperative. Major decisions about the platform and the direction of the software are voted on by the membership. Here, you'll see that there was a pretty even distribution of interest in starting with book chapters or ebook lending. Controlled digital lending was third, special collections, particularly the hosting of dissertations and theses, was fourth, and article delivery was last. It should be noted that t-shirt sizes, representing the amount of effort, were included in the project descriptions. I take these results to mean that the Reshare community wanted book chapters and ebook ILL sooner because they thought they would take less effort to build rather than article delivery, not that articles was any less important. Development, then, is funded by the community, prioritized by the product team, turned into actionable user stories by subject matter experts, and then built by developers until the full feature is delivered. What I'll be speaking about now is the current release that's been worked on by all of those groups. Frequently, features are sponsored by individual institutions or groups. This slide shows the contributors who made this particular release possible. While initially an MVP for non-returnables, the work sets Reshare on a path towards full-scale digital lending services. Let's take a look at what's already been delivered. To start, users can fill out a blank data entry form for their citation. Whether an article from a database or scanned book chapter, users can choose what type of content they want delivered. Fields in the form will change based on the material they choose. For example, articles may have a journal title, a volume, an issue, while book chapters might have a chapter title, a book title, an ISBN. In the example shown in this slide, this is a book chapter that's going to be requested. Metadata can also come from an open URL or it can also come from a discovery record. Later enhancements to the shared index might include book chapters within viewfinds or even ebooks. Before the request is submitted, a copyright agreement window is shown to the user that they'll have to accept before proceeding with their request. The text is customizable at the consortium level. Once the user has submitted their request, they'll receive confirmation. Now let's take a look at what the ILL librarian is seeing on the back end. In the staff interface, operators receive the request and they can begin processing. It's important to note the request could be a licensed ebook, a DRM-free ebook, a scan request for a book chapter, or an article. Here, you'll see that staff can reevaluate, resubmit, approve, or reject the request before it's even sent to a supplying library. It may be that a transaction is more than an institution's permissions or fair use policy can accommodate. The book may be available locally. They may want to purchase an ebook of it, or any other number of rejection reasons. They can also link the request to a shared index record for more information that their supplying library can use when filling this request. This librarian wanted to enter information from the shared index to help identify suppliers by adding an ISBN and other identifiers. Notice that the chapter information didn't get overwritten, but the data from the MARC record overlays the information that the patron supplied. Once the request has been edited, the request can be sent to the network for fulfillment. Now let's pivot to what the supplier sees. Here, the book chapter is requested in the Supply app. The Supply app is the view for all incoming lending requests. Once the supplier sees the metadata of the request, they can respond to the requesting library to say that they're willing to supply the item, or move the request onto the next supplier in the list of potential supplying libraries. Sometimes this is called a ROTA. If they decide to supply the book chapter, they can print a pull slip that a staff member can take to the stacks, retrieve the item, and then scan it. This might be awkward if you're getting a book chapter from an ebook, so the operator can just mark the pull slip as printed if they don't need to go to the stacks for the item. After the operator retrieves the book chapter or the article from the e-resource, or it could even be a scan from a printed volume, they can continue to process the ILL patron's request. For now, the staff at the supplying library would upload the file to a secure file exchange service. If this were an ebook ILL, they might just need to get the URL from the publisher or the aggregator platform that has a tokenized or encrypted or specialized URL for access to the ebook. For the 1.16 version of Reshare, Minitex will be using OCLC's article exchange service to securely send files between suppliers and requesters. Outlined below, you can actually see the URL field where Minitex is going to be placing their article exchange URL. This URL then gets emailed to the patron when the request updates in the originating institution's request app. Once the 18626 message is received from the supplying library that the document has been uploaded to a secure location, an email is sent with the URL for the patron to pick up the file at their convenience. The same link will be available in ViewFind within the My Account function for a limited number of days, and then when the document is expired, the link will be removed from patron access. The advantage of focusing on the 18626 messaging first is that we can and will build different file delivery channels for different types of non-returnables in their networks. Community members have asked for support from the Odyssey protocol used by both Iliad and RapidILL. Still others may want to create links to a shared storage system within the collection. All of these methods can be developed depending on how the consortia wishes to implement. As you can see, the Reshare Digital Roadmap has some exciting advancements to add on to our current physical items and delivery platforms. All of the messaging that happens between partners uses my beloved ISO 18626 protocol. Getting back to the community vote, we're seeing the road ahead for Reshare Digital. As the community gains experience with each of these channels, we're building components for the next stretch of road. The Boston Library Consortium, with their investment in controlled digital lending, paved the way for hosted ebook collections in Haiku by helping us think through how to limit access to a digital file. Minitex, University of Pittsburgh, Seton Hall University, and Washington and Jefferson College invested in these very first few steps of the book chapter workflow I just demonstrated. Palni has given us ways to think about how consortia might host ebooks in a local platform using their Haiku application. This all depends on licensing restrictions. Again, though, each step on this current problem helps Reshare members address these future needs. We recognize that not every local network will have the broad range of materials that their patrons need. WeShare, or We Share, is an initiative to think beyond individual Reshare groups to other Reshare consortia and beyond using standard messaging protocols. Typically, this has been accomplished with proprietary APIs between vendors. We're seeking to work within the resource sharing vendor market to standardize how requests are transferred between these networks. Previously, this was accomplished through a process called transfer request. In a transfer request scenario, a request is thrown over the proverbial wall to another vendor's network. The requester would have to be a member of both networks, or they'd have to subscribe to or even use both softwares in order to accomplish the interlibrary loan. Currently, this means the request would have to be managed in the supplying network software unless there's some type of business relationship between the vendors with their partners and with their groups. WeShare looks to extend that network to partners and vendors who are willing to work closely together to fill the areas which their local network can't fill. The requirements of each community is for as close as real-time updates as possible. We may not need to know which library inside the network will fill that request or how many libraries have passed on filling the request, but they need to be able to see whether the request is in process, completed, or whether the supplying network isn't able to supply the request. One of the biggest requirements of the WeShare initiative is bidirectionality and mutuality between partners. Libraries should be able to process ILL requests in the softwares of their choice, rather than being forced to use a particular vendor's software because that's where the book is coming from. In this sense, WeShare is as much about the social norms within and between networks, whether vendors or other nodes, as it is about the technology. This slide shows some of the questions that potential partners might ask in order to help members of their community. As you can see, there's certainly a lot going on in Reshare. In subsequent releases, we'll refine the workflows I demonstrated, expand the number of groups that can be requested from, and improve in the areas where friction exists, introducing new delivery methods, automations, and integrations needed by the Reshare community along the way. If you're curious or want more details about our cooperative, check out the community meeting on September 19th at 1 p.m. You can register using the QR code. Thanks for watching. We should have a few minutes for questions. If you have any, please ask them here.